Yeah, that was 1932, I believe, roughly. Well, anyway, Lewis Bauer and his friend somehow found out about the cave here, English Cave, and they were, I guess, snooping around here, and they kind of pried loose a few boards, and Louis apparently went first into this shed, which was, real dark in there, obviously, without windows, apparently. And there was an open elevator shaft that the Paul Weck Winery had installed to get their wine barrels down into the cave. And he somehow tripped and fell headfirst into this elevator shaft. And he died a few days later after they recovered him from the bottom of the shaft.
There's all sorts of legends about children climbing down holes and finding bottles of Paul Weck's wine that were left behind. So people have been trying to find entrances for, the last 50 years.
We've been doing all sorts of documentation about these different entrances, and right now they're up to number 16 we have cataloged.
There's always been legends, and people tell stories that back when they were young, that there was this bricked up entrance in their basement, and their grandfather told them that back in the 1920s or the 1890s that used to lead to a staircase down into the cave, etc.
And of course, some are totally crazy, like underneath a 15-foot wide diameter tree around here.
Is it theoretically possible that in some house somewhere around us that there is in fact an entrance? Yes, it's theoretically possible. However, barring somebody coming out and just telling us, yes, I've been hiding this for decades and I want to come clean, I don't expect that to happen anytime soon.
Since it's been closed up in roughly 1919, it's just something that's kind of somehow blossomed out to where there's all these people thinking they have it in their basement, or it's, in the park somewhere.
The English Cave Community Garden is in the Benton Park neighborhood of South St. Louis.
We quickly figured out that this was one of the remnant properties of Ezra O. English.
Basically about 50 feet below where we're sitting right now, there was a large enough cavern that even people in their Sunday best could actually enter relatively easily down a staircase.
And this is kind of Grand Center for the Lost Caves of St. Louis, especially South St. Louis.
This site, English Cave, goes all the way back to the 1830s when this was way out in the countryside. This was known as the St. Louis Commons, which actually goes all the way back to French colonial history. English and McHose bought this property from the city of St. Louis, and it's actually very interesting. While we usually associate the brewing industry in St. Louis with German Americans, they obviously, you can tell by their last names, McHose and English, they obviously were not German. But we give them credit for probably most likely being the first brewers to use a natural limestone cave to store their beer. Those brewers like Lemp and Busch and Schneider, they just use their caves to store or lager their beers to make, to finish up their beers. But in the case of English and McHose, we believe they actually allowed the general public to enter English Cave and actually use it as an entertainment space. There's this amazing painting in the collection of the Missouri History Museum that shows the entrance to English Cave back before the Civil War. This definitely was a landmark, and it definitely was a place that people like to have special events. Caves, they had a very consistent temperature and humidity. So even though perhaps the brewing operation maybe wasn't doing very well, that cave with its natural temperature and constant humidity, that was still a very good marketable opportunity.
The last actual use in the cave was the Jacob Lorenz private luxury garden, which was on this site apparently. And he also had a mushroom farm down in the cave. And we only found one article about his operation here, but because his mushroom farm got broken into with kids and the police investigated. So that's the last recorded use we have is Jacob Lorenz.
Yeah, you had those temperatures down into around the 50s 50-degree mark, but then you had to pack those caves full of ice too. The caves became obsolete. I mean, they were going all the way up to north central Illinois with steamboats that were pulling barges to get ice. I think these mushroom farmers kind of came in, and that was sort of the best that the property owner could kind of come up with.
This plan of getting back into the cave was basically created with a group called the English Cave Steering Committee. And there's roughly 25 people on that committee as of this day, and it started roughly 2 years ago.
We're going to have a couple holes drilled, which I think is the best chance of us discovering what English Cave looks like.
Well, initially, in terms of drilling back into to find the cave, there was a little bit of speculation that they might be kind of a crazy idea. Just 20 feet away from me, there were these two sheds on this Sanborn insurance map, and there's a speculation going around that within those sheds was a entrance to the cave, a series of steps.
I'm really excited. I can't believe we've actually gotten to the point where in the near future there's going to be a giant drilling derrick right here in the middle of the park.
I think the cave gods are with us, right now. That's what I keep saying. We keep having all these little beautiful things happen that keep us moving forward. So it's been great.
Here's the update, gentlemen. We drilled down and it has sand layer. And the water they send down is not coming back up. They think it's just coming up partially where the soil and limestone meet. There's broken rock and so they're not getting flushing action going on here.
Oh, it's leaking into the sand?
And that sand layer is just causing everything to bind up. The drill won't turn, they can't pull it out, it's all bound up right now.
They broke through at about just shy of 50 feet through the ceiling, and there's a huge void down there. It's the cave, and we came really close, about a meter away from one of the walls of the cave. So if we had picked a place to drill just over a meter away, we would have just gotten solid bedrock. So we nailed it.
But that building corner is probably pretty good. Can you hold it right there?
Holding. That circle is probably from us grinding on bedrock.
Oh, okay.
That water from
No, that might be just
Dust.
it's going to have a barometric pressure difference, so it's
about a foot?
I think you're seeing debris.
But if we're seeing the bottom,
What else would it be?
That's just the edge of the casing. We're going to leave the casing any second.
Right there, right there.
was guided by the spirits of English Cave to choose the correct spots. And right now, the LiDAR is mapping out a three-dimensional image of the giant room.
So 0 is kind of like that direction, I guess. So I'll try to orient it like that. Yeah,
We're seeing the furthest section this way.
Look how close we came to not hitting.
But now he's doing detailed scanning of 30 minutes.
Yeah, so it's scanning the floor now. You know, because the horizontal slice won't show that because it was only looking
if there's
horizontal.
like a wall here and we're hitting here, we wouldn't see that passage down here, right? If the laser's hitting the wall.
No, you're
It eventually will.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you just throw.
Pretty certain it's going to be like hit the equator, then it'll be going up like this, then hit the ceiling. So it'll do that for about 15-20 minutes, and then it'll start doing like a globe. These are like the parallels, and then it'll switch to a vertical mode, and it'll start hitting like the meridians, the survey.
We spent 3 days drilling for English Cave as a part of the English Cave Recovery Project. Unfortunately, we were successful beyond our wildest dreams. Looks like a rectangular doorway that would have been at the bottom of a set of steps, you know, it very well could be the 50 stone steps that was part of the original entrance. Next step is to continue to get, 4K quality video footage from within the cave. We're also going to update Charlotte Rother. Charlotte Rother was married to a gentleman named Hubert Rother, and together they, in the early 60s, they explored a lot of the St. Louis brewery caves, and they were a lot more accessible back then, for one thing, even though they never got in the English cave per se. And they wrote a little booklet about all these different caves that they ventured into. They also did a lot of research from back then, you know, based on going to the libraries and talking to residents up and down the streets around these caves, and just finding out as much as they could about, about these caves that were being slowly lost one by one, you know, back then. But anyway, we've been communicating with her every 4 or 5 weeks or so. I sent her a letter and some of our information, and we were organizing an effort to reclaim English Cave. So we started communicating back and forth, and now I have a really good story for her.